thing, we will have modern wrestling to talk about. Because not only did Keith Lee, which I can't really, we'll talk about it later. Keith Lee made an announcement right at the top of NXT, but there was a shocking debut, a shocking, I don't know what to call it.
Appearance.
There you go, an appearance. Eddie Kingston on AEW challenging for the TNT, hopefully remodeled soon, title. I want to say hi to Jay, who's in the room. Jay, who's a saucy man. And Dax, Thanos, Deadpool is also in the room. So
all three of them?
All three of them.
Wow.
Three for the price of one. So if you go to vocnation.com or if you go to the Stadium Journey website, you will see a link to the last interview that just aired live last night. And this interview came up. Yeah, we've been preparing for it for months. I did my research, and apparently not enough research, because we interviewed Emma Tiedemann, who is the play-by-play voice for the Portland Sea Dogs minor league baseball team. And Craig, please, it's still a little bit, I don't know, up or higher. I don't know what to do. It's just that you're so damn hot. It's picking up every breath. I know, man.
I'm holding my breath.
Don't hold your breath too much. Well, you might want to hold your breath for this one. Dan's one of the best at telling the difference between the three. Thank you. I try to keep track of Thanos, Deadpool, Dax. I could usually tell when one is talking, but I like to introduce you as all three. So anyway, Emma Tiedemann is the play-by-play voice, the voice of the Portland Sea Dogs. And I did research, looked up who she was, and looked up her work calling baseball games, and great. Can't wait to interview her. She's a great play-by-play person, and it'll be a fun interview. And, who doesn't like baseball? Except people who don't like baseball. If that was not a true statement, what was? Anywho, she begins the interview, and she goes, my grandfather was in commentary. When I grew up in the Dallas area, my grandfather was hold on, Craig, this gets better. My grandfather announced for the Dallas Cowboys, Texas Rangers, high school football, and world-class championship wrestling. And I said, hold on a second. I didn't say this on air. I'm being quiet because it's not my turn. So I was like, it's two people. This is two people. And I know it's not Mark Lawrence. I'm like, is it Bill Mercer? Sure enough, goddammit. We're interviewing Bill Mercer's granddaughter on Stadium Journey, and I didn't even know. Go ahead, Craig.
Oh, my gosh. She's got royal blood coursing through her veins.
And I didn't even know. I texted Dean to let him know. I wasn't going to text you on purpose. I wanted to break this to you on air because I wanted the reaction. So I almost started texting you. And I was like, oh, wait, I'll tell him tomorrow. So I go, so the old interview we did with Tully Blanchard where our Omega Squad, quick summon Hugh Jackman. Oh, Ryan Reynolds is talking. Yeah, well, Ryan Reynolds gets one up on Hugh Jackman every time. But so I text Dean, and our interview we did years ago with Tully Blanchard and Omega Squad, our very own lovely Omega Squad, asked the question about the cage match and admitted to Tully, foolishly, that he hadn't seen it. And I know you were listening live, and he goes,
I was.
Yeah, no, we have done interviews like that. I'll explain in a second. We'll get to the interview thing in a second. Why not? We have much to talk about, but it'll probably be quick, depending on how we both felt about Extreme Rules. So he goes, you haven't seen the cage match between me, Magnum TA, and Omega? Yes. No, sir, I haven't. He goes, well, if you didn't see the cage match before this interview, you didn't do your due diligence. Cut to, what was the date yesterday? The 21st? 21st of July, and I text Dean, yeah, I missed that part about her, and he shoots back, well, you didn't do your due diligence.
Full circle, baby.
And I immediately texted Omega and told him. It's like, we've both been due diligenced. But if you are interested at all, and you should be because she is a fantastic commentator, go to vocnation.com or to stadiumjourney.com and watch the interview now, where she talks about briefly how inspirational her grandfather was. Bill Mercer was firsthand encouraging to her for her to pursue her profession, and is was one of her mentors. And I kept it at that because I didn't want to make it a Bill Mercer episode. But I was like, well, he's still kicking. 94. He's still around. He still likes talking about those stories and telling stories. I don't know if that'll evolve into anything, but
But still, the fact that I mean, you're 1 degree or 2 degrees removed from Bill Mercer, so that's absolutely incredible.
I very happily was able to tell her that the apple did not at all fall far from that tree.
So she's that good, huh?
She's great. She's a great commentator. She's fantastic. My friend Mike Ventola is the color commentator. He's the play-by-play guy for the not the Reading Phillies, the High Valley Iron Pigs. The Iron Pigs could be doing professional. Just it's all timing thing at that point when you're that good. The guy who does the radio for the Washington Caps was the Hershey Bears play-by-play guy for years, and the only thing that held him back was the guy that had the position before him. So it's only a matter of time for both those people. So I just thought that was a nice little tidbit to start the show with. I'm very, very happy to tell you that story live. It was amazing.
I'm even happier to remember that Bill Mercer is still alive.
Yes. You know how that story goes for World Class. You just assume the worst.
Yeah, and when we cover in Wrestling Historian, it's a lot of that going. So, so that's incredible, Dan. Absolutely incredible.
Absolutely, yeah. I it was real hard for me. I kept it professional, but it was real hard for me to not go, hey, It's like, no, this is not about him. It's about her. Very good interview, though. Again, you could hear the influence and the inspiration. I guarantee it.
No doubt. You scored a huge coup, my friend.
It's funny because I was explaining to the gentleman who might not know who Bill Mercer is back in the day when there was not a lot of color commentators in wrestling.
No.
Even in the 80s when he was doing it, there was very few exceptions to a two-man booth or a two-person booth. Of course, as the 80s went on, that changed. But Bill Mercer was calling World Class for 30 years?
Yeah, for its entire existence. But more importantly, during its heyday, when it was the most popular territory in the NWA and in some cases in the entire world, because the ratings that were taking place in Texas for World Class at the height of the Von Erich superstardom were astronomical. And we're going to get into ratings later on in Historian. But and he called it all. I mean, the
highs and the lows.
The highs and the lows, yes. But when it's high, it was no high. He called the spot the most imitated spot in wrestling history, the cage door into the head that first happened Christmas night, 1982. He called all the Von Erich Freebird matches. He unfortunately was the first voice that fans heard when he had to deliver bad news during the lows, when we were starting to lose Von Erichs and the Gino Hernandez, and the Chris Adams, and
But that silky smooth delivery that nobody can duplicate anymore.
Bill Mercer, no.
Welcome to World Class Championship Wrestling. This is Bill Mercer reporting.
From the world famous Sportatorium, the only building designed specifically for professional wrestling.
And it helped that he had a unique voice too.
Oh yeah. And to the point where when World Class was syndicated, so you had people in Philadelphia, in New York, going crazy over World Class Championship Wrestling. Because that was only available. I read about it in the After magazines, but then when he finally got to see it and hear it, it was a whole separate wrestling unto itself. Because during the 80s, which is why the Wrestling Historian did mean so much to me, and I try to impart to our younger listeners what it was like when it wasn't the zenith and the monopoly that it is now. Back then, when you can watch 10 or 12 different territories in one day. World class stood out because world class was doing something that no other wrestling was doing. They had cameras in the ring during the introductions, and then at ringside the WWF wasn't doing it. No one in the NWA was doing it. Georgia Championship Wrestling wasn't doing it. And again, like he's eloquently points out before the beginning of every world class, is the only auditorium in the United States built specifically for professional wrestling. There wasn't anything else that was happening there. They didn't convert it into a basketball court or to ice hockey rink. It was made for professional wrestling.
Yeah,
In that
go ahead. Sorry.
in that tiny little non-air conditioned box that you would also freeze to death in the winter. That's where some of the most amazing memories were made, and generations were there. I mean, but you saw one of the things that I miss the most now, Dan, is when I watch professional wrestling. Is the not only the lack of children there, but the lack of seniors there, old people. And you watch a world class uh, telecast, you saw kids and you saw old people and grandmothers and grandfathers there and with the kids, and it went on to connect it all together. You know, he gets his fatherly type tone, his mellow sounding voice. No, you could listen to Bill Mercer talk about anything. He was a father figure just from his voice alone.
You listen to him read the yellow pages, and it would be entertaining.
Yes.
Yeah, and the Sportatorium, it was literally built for boxing and wrestling. Sure, Elvis played there once, once, a bunch of times, and they had the country jamboree there and all. But literally the stage would be the wrestling ring with the ropes taken down and everybody sitting around them like it was in the round. So it was literally a wrestling building, and if for better or for worse, it's probably worse that it's gone. But it's weird because it's like the Spectrum. We have fond memories of that building, but that building was a dump. The same thing on a smaller scale, kind of, to the Sportatorium with great memories, but the rats and the fries fire. Holy Jesus. You say that? Wow.
I've been to more wrestling bouts at the Spectrum than any other concert, Sixers, Flyers, game ever. Did I ever tell you about my obstructed view seats at the Spectrum?
No.
They sold tickets,
Yes, they did.
kids, to obstructed view seats. So, and you bought them. So when the Sixers, during the height of the Dr. J era,
Jesus.
when the Portland Trailblazers came back, the Portland Trailblazers, the team that beat us in the 1977 NBA Finals, they only come to Philadelphia once a year. So that was a ticket that everybody wanted to see. And the NBA was nothing like it was now. There was no sellouts all the time, except when Doc was in town. So when the Portland Trailblazers came in town, my dad got tickets. And so we all went as a family. So I was at the very tippy top of the Spectrum looking down on this court. But not only did I have to look down, I had to look like this because right directly in front of my seat is a stone pillar. That's what they mean by obstructed view. So they would sell you seats where you would sit in front of a column. Okay, so I had to do this the whole time and look around. And keep in mind, I was 11. So, and I was
Did your dad take you?
My mom and my neighbors took
Did your mom and your neighbors sit in a good seat and stick you?
Of course. Oh yeah. Again, because I was the youngest.
You sit here, Craig. It'll be fine.
Yeah, here you go. You're fine.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love your mom even more.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if it wasn't you, it would have been me.
Yeah.
You sat next to the guy that smells bad. Oh, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, family.
Thanks a lot. So let me just say right off the bat that Impact and AEW had the better shows than WWE this week. Sorry. And this is after three. I took 3 weeks off after all the stuff that came out with Speaking Out and everything that was going on. I was like, I need to take a break. I can't watch any of this right now. I'm just not in the mood. I was watching the old stuff. I got through all the way through 89 and 90 in 3 weeks. That is on the WWE network, that is. And come back to, I think the first event I watched was Slammiversary. I was like, you know what? I'll watch Slammiversary. I'll watch Impact. And skipping the matches where the spousal abusers are in, it was the best show that weekend. Uh, I know you didn't watch it, but I do recommend if you can rent the Fight app if you have the means. Go ahead and watch that. Watch Slammiversary, except for the 2 matches where those guys,
where those guys were on. Okay.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do know what you're saying. Now I know big doings were happening in TNA and I know if it's big because it's happening on social media, and I don't hear anything about it, and social media explodes, and I'm hearing name after name after name showing up on TNA, and it's like old home week, and it's a reunion, and I can't remember the last time I even mentioned the letters TNA on this podcast, but
6
you
months.
bring out, yeah, but you bring out so many great stars or former stars or debuting stars on TNA. Yeah, EC3 and EY's back, and Gallows and Anderson. You're gonna get my attention.
My favorite was Heath Slater,
Yeah,
because he kind of just walks on behind them during a segment and grabs the mic, does his thing. Uh, um, Brian Myers, what did he? Brian Myers went at. Now I forget his name. Kurt Hawkins.
Kurt Hawkins. Yes, who had a great shirt on
Yes, did.
because I got fired. Yeah.
I like his tweet. Sorry, Vince. The Knockouts Gauntlet was a lot of fun.
hmm
It had 2 Santina spots, so that took away from it a little bit. Impact is good. It's no Craig Lagan show, but it'll do. Also put over my newest tweet. Now, your newest tweet came out when we were promoting a new episode, so no, I won't.
Sorry, great one.
I'll put it over later when the episode's done. And I will say this. Eric Young's one of my favorite wrestlers the last 20 years, but I kind of don't feel bad for him in the WWE.
Why not?
I mean, I could kind of see how Vince saw a 40-year-old mid-carder and went, what am I pushing him for? But knowing that I know what Eric Young can provide to the show, I still question why they bothered in the first place.
I don't know why Sanity was broken up. Sanity
Vince is an idiot now.
With Nikki could have been your next great heel faction for many years to come.
Well, if they make the Nation version 2 heel, I'm gonna have a problem. But what do I know? Go ahead. I thought you had more to say.
No, it's good. I hated what I was so proud of Eric Young, and I echo your statements about him. He's one of my favorite performers.
Let me add this: your impressions of what Harry just said, that he needs to drop the Sanity S.
Who needs to drop the Sanity S?
Eric Young.
No. I thought him and Sanity, they were one of the best heels. Not only were they the best heel group in NXT, bringing them up, it seems like they all came up together at the same time. Let's bring up like 5 different, people. Insanity was one, and the Viking Raiders were another, and they all brought in the Revival. They all came up at the same time. It's like, okay, we can't bring them all in because now somebody's going to get lost in the shuffle. And unfortunately, it was Sanity. Hats off to Nikki, who still has a spot and has title wins and is still prominent in the very thin women's division in the WWE now. But her with them, I thought she was.
Harry, what does it go back to while Craig finishes his point?
I'm glad that at least Eric has a place to show his stuff, show his wares. Even if it's back to the bottom with TNA, he's too good not to be on television somewhere.
Well, I was going to say, in 20 seconds, Eric Young and EC3 look better than they ever did in WWE, and EC3 better than he ever did in his previous stint with
The TNA.
Impact. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just me. I don't know what Eric Young does other than a version of Sanity. That's what he does now. That's what he is. He doesn't go back to Super Eric, or does he go back to generic wrestler number 4? I just don't know what else he does except for this. That's what he is now.
Whatever he is, he works, and obviously because Eric Young keeps getting a job everywhere. TNA was the only place where he was utilized properly outside of NXT, and him being part of a heel group works best for him because the guy can do everything.
Yeah.
Eric, you can use Eric Young in an AJ Styles spot. You can use Eric Young in an MVP spot. You can use Eric Young in a Cedric Alexander or Ricochet spot. The guy can do everything, and he can give you whatever you need as a heel or a face. But unfortunately, he's always been. Or I even thought I hoped against hope that he and Bobby Roode could reconnect because they would be an amazing tag team. The tag team that Bobby Roode had with Chad Gable could have easily been Eric Young. Nothing against Chad Gable.
So you're suggesting, Harry, a mishmash of everything that's come before? I don't know. You know how I feel about reboots. I like them and all, but nobody else does.
Nope.
Oh, man. So, also happened was Extreme Rules.
Horror show.
No, I'm not calling it that. It's so stupid.
Well, it's aptly named because it was a horror show.
Garbage. He is an reinventable kind of guy, though, Eric Young. Yeah, I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah, he always is.
When this gets stale, he'll do something. He'll change it up just enough.
Mm-hmm.
He could be a Nashville Predators since he's a Nashville Predators fan. Don't know how that happened, but I guess living in Nashville that many years, I'll do that. So, yes, the horror show, aptly named indeed, which was a fine show except for the match that they put the most effort into, which was I guess I don't know what I thought I'd expect when the stipulation of the match was to pop an eyeball out. They did it the best they could with the amount of gore they could use, I guess. I mean, let's start at the fact, Craig, I know what you're going to say. It was a stupid stipulation to begin with. This is where you take over.
Yes. Unless, and the only thing, Dan, the only reason I could think of that they would even entertain this ridiculous, impossible to deliver on premise is Rey Mysterio's contract. Because if they weren't confident that he was going to sign, then you can say, okay, well, he lost his eye. We'll paint a ping pong ball red, and that way we can never have to see Rey Mysterio again. So that way, when he shows up on AEW or New Japan somewhere with 2 working eyes, they say, well, he's not in our company, so we don't care. So since it doesn't count anyway. But if they do renegotiate Ray's contract, then they got some explaining to do. Not that they have to, or not that it matters, because the entire premise was incredibly, like you said, stupid and impossible to deliver upon. You have 2 really great wrestlers that could put on a great wrestling match, and it's not even getting into, because now it what I hated about this match, other than the premise, was now it got me thinking, and now I'm critiquing it. Now, why is if the idea of the match between 2 great wrestlers is to get out to poke out the other person's eye, which I always couldn't understand, that poke someone's eye out.
Sure.
You could poke it in, which is always was happened to me. Why were there any wrestling holds, or that? Why was there even an attempt to do anything? And why is the only way to take out someone's eye? Was it mandated? Was it in the contract that it has to be by the ring steps?
Well, here's another question I like an answer to. Why does pushing on your eyeball on the ring steps pop it out?
Yeah.
That way.
I guess I mean out of commission.
I'm not a medical professional at all. I'm just saying.
I'm not a doctor. Yeah, my favorite. I'm not a doctor per se,
I'm not a doctor
but
per se, but um,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, that was and unfortunately that was the second stupidest match of the card.
What was the first?
The cinematic piece of crap that was
I
the
I didn't
main
even want.
event.
I turned it off before that. I have
Well,
to go back and watch it.
the Asuka Sasha match, which was had an equally stupid ending.
Good
Um,
match ruined by a stupid ending.
yeah, I don't know what the
Can I say though that Sasha and Bailey have continuously been highlights those two nights, and I assume the weeks prior.
Can I ask you something, Dan? Is Bailey more popular now as a heel than she ever was as a face?
I think she might. She's more popular now as a heel than she was as a face on the main roster.
Okay.
I was there the night she debuted on the main roster. I was there the night that they tag teamed, her and Sasha tag team in the WWE on the main roster at Battleground,
Mm-hmm.
Battlefield, Battle. I don't know, Battle
Battle
something,
Battleships.
Battle Fudge,
Mm-hmm.
and we discussed it on the show. The time between Sasha getting in the ring, the
Mm-hmm.
pause of the music before hitting the music, and the music hitting, and people going nuts was perfect. And then it got, of course, as much as I assumed. I remember Omega Squad saying, that thing about stuff working on the main roster that won't work on the main roster that worked in
On
NXT,
NXT.
and that'd be one of them. Like, there's no way the Bailey thing works out. And he was kind of right because it got real stale real quick. This bad Bailey is working perfectly.
And Bailey and Sasha are the best thing on either show.
It's just like that, and I'm not comparing it to the level of Steve Austin. So please
Mm.
hold your cards and letters for somebody who cares. Um, the basic idea of once he went heel, his real personality and his goofy personality, not the comedy gimmick that came later with the Cookies and Deborah. I'm saying just more laid back and more just more than just one speed. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Same thing with Bailey. The stuff that she can do now that she couldn't do as a face, and she's actually almost becoming more likable to other people. I think it was great either way because I'm a Bailey guy. I'm just saying, all right. But more people are reacting to it now because they're seeing more than just hee hoo hoo. You know?
The only thing that's getting to me, Dan, is not only they are the best act on either, like I said, on either show, the Sasha and Bailey
Yeah.
show. I'd love to see how it plays out when we get the crowds back. But the
Okay, I
thing
do.
is, because they are so popular and everyone saw how much they love Sasha and they love Bailey, they're supposed to be heels. So
Mhm.
that's the only thing that they're slipping up on because they're so popular and so big, but they're supposed to be heels.
As long as
And
they're still doing mean things to the good guys, it doesn't matter to me, really.
okay, okay,
It will only matter when they start booing the good guys.
yeah,
It's
cause
gonna be
yeah,
like,
cause that yeah, cause then it becomes a Stone Cold effect when it becomes he's such a badass heel that they start cheering for him, and then you get a natural baby face that comes in and he gets booed. It'll be Kurt Angle all over again.
yeah, we
Yeah,
will see.
we will see. But yeah, that was yeah. So Extreme Rules Horror Show was a festering piece of crap, and the main event was a blue whale size piece of dung that should never be associated in any way, shape, or form with professional wrestling.
I just appreciate after the curse fest that happened last week with the concussion boy that as soon as I make fun of him, he says something that makes me laugh. Booley and Sasha Bad TV.
No,
I like
good
Booley.
bully.
I just
Yeah,
Booley. I'll give you 3 guesses who said that.
I, I, I know our friend from across the pond. Bailey and Sasha are the best thing on either show. Outside of MJF, there's no one really that I want to see on TV every week, just because of their interplay and how they're this strong now with the limited fan and limited fan interaction. when we get the crowd back, hopefully, which will be sooner than later, and this because the only other person that's getting the shaft really with the lack of fan is Drew, uh, and because the pure wrestling match on this card was him and Dolph Ziggler, and because it's impossible to have a bad match with Dolph Ziggler under any circumstances,
That's
and
true.
those guys do a great job. And as much as it's not necessary for them to wrestle again, since Drew already beat Dolph, uh, to use the excuse for them to wrestle again, I'm fine with. And I'm fine with feeding Drew. Uh, not that these nothing against Dolph, no slight to Bobby Lashley. Feeding Drew lesser heels or mid card heels until the crowd comes back, and then you can feed him the big guns, and then you can feed him a Seth Rollins or a Randy Orton. Then that will be the culmination, because outside of Bailey and Sasha, Drew's the one that's really taking the loss of no crowd, in my opinion.
Harry said Drew should lose the title to Bobby Lashley.
If there was people, I could possibly see that. But then again, if there was people with Bobby, we get the kind of push or kind of
It
heat
would
that
sound the same.
yeah,
Nothing.
just nothing. But hats off to MVP, who's really resurrected his career with the Hurt business. I mean, again, a great stable, and you're getting underutilized men who are great in the ring but don't have the mic skills. Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley, and I wouldn't be adverse if Cedric did a heel turn and
Oh, yeah.
joined up, just because I like the dynamic of those guys. But MVP on the mic.
Let me tell you right now, Cedric is the best wrestler in that group.
Yeah.
I really hope they do form Nation number 2, Nation
Mm-hmm.
version 2, whatever they call it.
Maybe they do call it the Hurt Business, because I love that name.
The what?
The Hurt Business,
The Hurt
because they're in,
Business. That's
yeah,
fine too.
and
Like it.
because business is good.
And then you won't have the comparisons to the Nation, which all the white people on the internet are trying to do anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was watching MVP this weekend, and I was like, man, who knew? And maybe it's a product of the pandemic, and certain people can't work, and others can't get there and can't get out of their house, can't travel.
Mm-hmm.
That he's had this second resurgence, because he had the original, and I will call the TNA run a resurgence because he had a good run there for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the second resurgence where he's just working.
I want to credit the documentary that was on Vice after Dark Side of the Ring. Do you remember the wrestling on Vice TV? Before Dark Side of the Ring. They did a documentary on the world of professional wrestling. They went to Mexico to look at young luchadors that started when they were 15. They went to Japan to look at teenage girls that started, and they went to a wrestler whose best days were behind it, and it was MVP. And they showed him wrestling at high school. And this is the first time I'd seen him in 5 years, and that's when he first time I saw him wrestle with the Punisher.
Yeah.
Yeah, Punisher right here.
Nice.
And the comic book stuff, but he was in front of like 12, 20 people. And he was talking about, and he had a son, and that's when they showed him looking at Kofi winning the title and hugging Shad Gaspard.
Oh, yeah.
And but after that, that's when MVP. The next time I saw him was at the Royal Rumble. So I believe that had to have something to do with it, because that's the only time MVP that was on national TV anywhere was on that Vice special on professional wrestling.
I just really hope they do something with him, because I feel that the internet reaction is making up for the lack of crowd reaction they're getting, and it's something that people will watch, all of them, especially MVP. But it just occurred to me when he was working there, like, that's pretty cool. I like that he's still there. Every time he comes out, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad he's still there.
Yeah.
Harry wants to retouch upon the match you hated more than the eyeball match. Let's be nerds for a second. Let's all be comic book and sci-fi nerds for a second. Alexa Bliss showing up in the in the whatever the hell that was.
in
What are we calling that?
the Swamp Fox match or whatever.
The swamp ass match.
The swamp buggy races. Yeah. Now we're supposed to believe that she's Sister Abigail this whole time.
Well, that's what everybody on the Twitter machine was saying, and I'll just read what Harry said. Also, I saw a few people getting S over Alexa being Sister Abigail. Abigail has powers, and it could have just been Bray. I hope, beyond all hope, that Alexa Bliss is Sister Abigail
Because
it would just be a great change of pace. I think I got excited when it popped up on screen with the highlights I saw. I have to go back and watch the whole thing. I was like, oh, that would be great if that was her.
I didn't get that far because you lost me after Braun Strowman hit himself on the back with an oar.
It was a. I like that little effect, by the way. You can talk about the match being crap, but I was like, oh, that was kind of clever. She shows up and to kind of distract Braun Strowman because of the little thing they used to have. And she was Sister Abigail, but of course it was just a mind trick, Jedi mind trick by the Fiend. By the way, he's the Fiend again. The Fiend came back out at the end. Harry, Braun screwed Braun. Thank you, Harry. That makes much more sense.
So stupid.
I hope they bring. I hope they do something with that, and that wasn't just a tease. I wanted Paige to be Sister Abigail or Daphne, but you can't always get what you want.
But if you try sometimes. No, I honestly, there's nothing to discuss with that.
Says
I don't
you.
call the match. It was incredibly stupid, absolutely ridiculous, and it has nothing to do with professional wrestling. That's why I can't discuss it. That nothing of that has anything remotely to do. You know what I did, Dan?
Just real quick before you tell me what you did. Remember what Vince McMahon. We're here to make movies. That's what he's doing. He's making movies now. But go ahead.
Well, thanks to this pandemic, now he has this opportunity to make movies, and he's in the happiest place on earth, right down the street from Disneyland. So, and he's always said he wanted to be the Walt Disney of wrestling.
Great.
But what I did, I watched all 5 episodes of the Undertaker documentary, The Last Ride.
Okay. It took him 20 years to do it. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And I watched the last chapter where he wanted to go out, the way he wanted to go out. And so what better way than to do it against AJ Styles, a perfect opponent, and what better match than to have a graveyard match. And I'm watching this documentary, and I'm seeing the making of the graveyard match. So I'm pretty much just watching a behind-the-scenes look of a Hollywood movie or TV movie.
Yeah.
What the living F does that have to do with wrestling? And they're having a match, but they have to stop, reposition the camera. All right, take 2. Okay, AJ, we're going to take it from this. I'm on a wrestling podcast. Okay, I'm here to talk about wrestling.
Yeah.
And anytime I hear anyone, even if they're fans of this podcast, say, "Well, I liked it. It was entertaining." I want to be entertained by a wrestling match. Okay, I can watch Walking Dead anytime I want. I can watch War of the Worlds on Epix. It's the same thing. I can watch. That was the second worst Swamp Thing I ever saw. Was that match on Extreme Rules? It's an embarrassment. I hate even just having to watch that. I hate what it's become. I thought the AEW football field fuckery was the word. Didn't think it can get any worse. Sorry.
It's okay. I told you I'm not editing him anymore. Try not to,
Okay.
but if you do, I'm not going to bother. I don't care.
That was my only one. But
I'm going to say something here.
Say something.
And I'm going to actually use Harry on my side on this one.
Wow.
I liked it. It was entertaining. It wasn't a wrestling match. I don't consider it a wrestling match. I don't consider it isn't wrestling. It was a vignette, and it will be viewed as a vignette. It was not a wrestling match. In that way, I can separate the two. Now, with that being said, you can still have a bad vignette And I tapped out Extreme Rules when that started. So I'll have to go back and watch the whole thing. But
Anytime I
you
see
know
anything
what,
like
folks? Do me a favor, folks. 6 to 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks. Wear your mask. Let's kill this virus so we can get back to a
yes,
bad product in arenas instead of a bad product in the performance center.
exactly.
Please, please,
Because
goddamn it.
yes, because if you go to a wrestling match, you go down to the spectrum, you go to your local arena, and then you stop watching what's in the ring. You have to look up at a screen to see someone settle their feud in a cinematic match. Then we've lost. Okay, then even if we defeat this pandemic, then we've lost as a society.
By the way, I will say one thing. Nobody's there to look up at the screen.
It better not
That's
be.
the only. Well, they can't.
Well,
There's nobody there.
the last Monday Night Raw I went to, it was like half the stuff that goes on. We have to look at the screen to find out what's going on backstage because there's a camera backstage, and everyone has to. That's where all the angles are are forwarded.
I'm going to call you Craig Cornett, but without the sexual cucking.
Okay. Well, we'll add the sexual cucking later.
Get consent first.
But yeah, well, Mr. Cornette and I are contemporaries, and Mr. Cornette and I love our professional wrestling, and Mr. Cornette and I are very upset with the direction it's going.
Harry Barnett had to chime in because I had to look up at the screen for me because that was because I was cheap as F. That was I'm just not gonna try to replace the F word next time so I don't stutter over my words when I.
Okay.
Anyway, for those watching now, watch the Wrestling Historian. Catbox showed me where Jimmy lives. Oh boy. I can't believe I said that on the air. There is a Wrestling Historian segment coming out. Just look at the end of the episode for the screen and click on it and watch the Wrestling Historian episode of this podcast. But until then, Craig, where do people follow you?
Other people can follow me, Dan, for other old man rants and old man yelling at clouds. On Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter at Craig Lagons, CraigLiggeons.
Follow me on Twitter at DanLaw83. All the episodes are on VOCNation.com. On your smartphone, type in VOC Nation Radio Network. Google Podcasts has finally replaced that ass app that was Google Play Music. So the podcasts actually come up now. It works. So on your Android or iPhone, type in VOC Nation Radio Network. You see HIAC Wrestling Podcast. That's it. YouTube.com/channel83 for the video episodes or live as you're watching right now. Some of you, twitch.tv/danlaw83. We'll see you next week with Nerd Herders. Remember that. We're going to have a big debut of Nerd Herders, the reboot, next week. We'll see you then. Goodbye.